So you want to throw a street fair. Quote, "We are all a little weird, and life's a little weird. And when we find someone whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall in mutual weirdness and call it love." Dr. Seuss. As we near the conclusion of this audiobook, I find it necessary to begin writing in the first person again. This chapter serves as my author's autobiography for the trio of books in the Esoteric series, since none contain an author's profile. This chapter should suffice for all three. I have always considered my role in writing books to be strictly about providing quality content, not about being the messenger. Similar to including this book's final thoughts at the beginning, this chapter will profile my professional path, an abbreviated life story, along with a highlight reel of some profound life lessons collected along the way. I'll try to keep this personal testimonial interesting, but it's really hard for me to write about myself for reasons I will explain below. If this writing style is too much of a departure from the rest of the book, I would understand if you want to skip ahead to the next chapter. Here's the resume portion of my bio. For the last 2 decades, my primary business card has me listed as publisher, author, producer. I could have also included public speaker, illustrator, photographer, artist. Another business card presents me as the executive director of a nonprofit organization, which produces a large outdoor event in San Francisco, California, every spring. It is a fun day of people wearing costumes and dancing in the streets. Anyone who is listening to this book chapter is encouraged to enjoy a very unique springtime experience with thousands of other happy participants on Howard Street in San Francisco. The nonprofit group that organizes the event is named World Peace Through Technology Organization, or WPTTO, and the outdoor festival is called the Weird Street Faire and is located in the Soma neighborhood of San Francisco, the city where I have lived for the past 25 years. The professional task of book publishing is what occupies most of my year. Between writing online and articles for print publication, new chapters for my books, and posting on social media, I also manage my various websites, do marketing work, special sales fulfillment, administrative tasks, and manage projects with outsourced collaborators. Wearing my publisher's hat, I seek to release only the kind of books I would value owning myself, which incorporate thought-provoking, critical content with a wide appeal to readers. If any CCC Publishing, that stands for Consortium of Collective Consciousness, new release exceeds sales expectations, then I am satisfied it has reached a larger audience, and I continue the promotional push. If not, I move on to other projects, as I always have done. You see, I do love my work, and it does not even seem like work most days. This, among other reasons, is why my life is filled with contentment, which is the meaning of a nickname I have, Santosh, which I acquired while traveling in India. I try to reaffirm my outlook every day, projecting optimism everywhere I go as best I can, and it seems to come back to me in every way. My overwhelming positive outlook is partly due to the fact that I've never been depressed a day in my life. I can honestly say I do not know what depression is because I've never experienced it, although I have compassion for those who suffer from any kind of mental illness. As my friends say, I hit the jackpot by being born with the happy gene. Besides writing and editing on a near daily basis, my work also includes the seasonal duties surrounding the Weird Street Faire. Although I love the twin jobs I have created for myself, I have not had any children and thus consider these two business endeavors as my two kids. And like any parent, I am glad to see them both grow and now stand on their own feet. An esoteric orientation. In the last few years, I have changed my editorial direction from travel publishing to the subjects I find most fascinating. Writing about travel to sacred places has introduced me to a certain degree of, quote, forbidden knowledge, which by its nature is controversial and not believed by all. It is esoteric after all. As I've become immersed in esoterica, I've discovered its draw as compelling alternative narrative that runs counter to my growing disillusionment with mainstream disinformation. In my esoteric series of books, I seek to outline subjects dealing with what is hidden, secret, occult, forbidden, little understood, magical, threatening to authorities, and not the least, mystical. Topics include conspiracy theories, media manipulation, secret sciences, backward engineering, weapons in space, underground bases, the occult, remote viewing, precognition, reincarnation, big pharma, GMOs, chemtrails, fluoride, vaccines, cyber mind, transhumanism, the shadow government, free energy, modern fascism, the royal family, false flag attacks, the Fourth Reich in America, 9/11, Zionism, Mossad, CIA, NSA, Federal Reserve, an end to money, UFO crashes, EBEs, alien abduction, super soldiers, cloned entities, anti-gravity, cattle mutilations, structures on other planets, out-of-place artifacts, giants, Anunnaki, men in black, ancient aliens, love attraction phenomena, near-death experience, end-time predictions, HARP, geoengineering, aspartame, Monsanto, shamanism, herbalism, mind over matter, crystals, ORMs, the truth embargo, Agenda 21, Codex Alimentarius, vitamin B17, hemp oil, the Georgia Guidestones, the Rothschilds, New World Order, the Black Pope, Jesuit Order, Freemasonry, Philadelphia Experiment, time travel, Yellow Cube, Stargate technology, MK Ultra, Project Bluebeam, cultural diffusion, lost tribes and civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, Carillion photography, numerology, astrology, psi, ESP, auditive levitation, sacred geometry, cosmology, dream interpretation, sacred symbols, life after death, ley lines, Wicca, the pineal gland, supernormal abilities, the Bermuda Triangle, vortices, seances, spiritualists, the Dalai Lama, utopian scenarios, past life regression, astral travel, telepathy, crop circles, giants in prehistory, and cryptozoology, among many other paranormal and parapsychology subjects. The third book in the Esoteric series is entitled Beyond Esoteric, The Ultimate Journey, to be released in 2020 by CCC Publishing without an author's bio. Much of the inspiration from my books has been collected from an adventure-filled life gleaned from extensive international and domestic travel. Being a voracious reader helped me become a critical thinker, fueled by an innate curiosity accompanied by habitual inner reflection. I learned early on that reading and travel were both noble pursuits. This is because of the power they have to expand the mind. After completing a self-financed trip around the world when I was 28, I decided to create a professional path I could enjoy for my next Saturn returning cycle. I began my middle adult phase by vowing to live a productive and truthful life. With all of my books, I try to present information as honestly as I can with no ulterior motive. There is no higher authority who can fundamentally alter or censure my work, which puts me in a unique position. As a disclaimer of sorts, my qualification is simply that of being in service to others. And this is what I believe to be my overriding directive in this lifetime. If I put forward incorrect information, I'll be the first to admit my mistake and immediately take corrective action to resolve any misunderstandings. To err is to be human, and in no way do I pretend I'm perfect. I have made my fair share of mistakes, but I seek to learn from my mistakes, and I vow to never repeat a wrong. In my own grand scheme of things, I feel like I am an ordinary person seeking to articulate very extraordinary subject matter contained in my esoteric series of videos, books, and audiobooks. Unintended consequences. Another aspect of my professional life is the role of president of the World Peace Through Technology Organization, WPTTO, and by extension, as the current event producer for the Weird Street Faire. I began this endeavor seeking simply to create a productive and fulfilling job for myself, which has become, by a twist of fate, an event in service to a great many others. What started as an outdoor block party in front of an artist's warehouse for a few hundred people became a hugely popular street festival where thousands flock to dress up, dance, and celebrate life. Together with a group of like-minded electronic music fans with a shared interest in producing live events, a unique gathering was created where there once was none. What morphed to become the How Weird of today exceeded all expectations. In a city that raises a very high standard for its unique outdoor festivals, all these years later, I can call myself the founder of one of San Francisco's largest events. Without consciously attending to do so, but consonant with my life purpose, I found myself using my creative talents with excitement and inspiration while being in service to many others, if for only a single day. In all my years of producing events, this party may have been the most far-reaching consequences. Included in my How Weird duties each year is to conceive the festival theme, art direct and illustrate the poster, meet with city officials alongside my event partner, Michael O'Rourke, and maintain an involvement in all aspects of the event, leading to the day of production. Of course, a few directors cannot do everything ourselves, and that is why we work with a dedicated team of experienced outdoor event producers who run events of their own, namely the legendary John Wood, and he produced the Love Parade when it was here in San Francisco. And other key team players include Jonesy, who does our mapping, who also moonlights with the Burning Man Festival and its associated year-round events. There is a lot of organizing that goes into creating a safe event where thousands of relatively uninhibited citizens can have a great time. Producing How Weird from the bottom up has truly been a labor of love. Collaboration with a dozen other key organizers has demonstrated to me the extended power of 10. When a person works with others of a like mind, there is a multiplier effect, times 10, for each person. The How Weird organizers all share a passion for creating a really wonderful experience that we hope will exceed the expectations of our patrons. The day of production responsibilities are delegated by a dozen organizers who pass assignments to the managers, who in turn communicate with about 100 employees. Our organization hires the Weird staff crew, donation gate workers, bartenders, staff room employees, EMTs, pays for SF police officers, and we also issue thousands of dollars in stipends to the stage managers. Each stage manager then oversees the setup and strike of their sound system, assigns the DJ slots, and oversees their dance area with the support of our hired security. We outsource most of the stages, but we occasionally produce our own in-house stage if the theme requires something specialized, such as the live marching bands for the Weirdy Gras stage in 2013. On the morning setup, one of my tasks is to oversee the barricade and portable toilet placement, while others oversee the generator cable drops and the, quote, organized chaos of getting the vendor booths, bars, and food stalls all into their correct locations. One pre-event collaboration I particularly enjoy is designing the posters every year with the different digital artists, Robert Kidwell, Mark Maxim, and Landon Elmore. I do the drawing and they fill in all the digital media pieces into a comprehensive poster. See if you can find at least one little gray alien and a UFO in each poster design. Continuing the playful lore of ETs coming to How Weird, marketing director Justin Weiner publishes the GPS coordinates for the most ideal UFO landing spot closest to the How Weird footprint. The How Weird has always been about positive co-creation with a sense of humor among like-minded friends. Our humble beginnings out on the street began 4 years after we moved into the CCC warehouse on Howard Street. An unforeseen opportunity in 1999 enabled the creation of the How Weird Street Faire as an ongoing outreach project for the newly created World Peace or Technology Organization. If we could pull it off, we faced the alluring prospect of combining outreach with throwing an annual outdoor music party for the people of San Francisco. Just a block away from the old CCC warehouse is the legendary Folsom Street Fair, one of the largest of its kind in the world. I knew that How Weird would have to be an extraordinary event to succeed. It took us another year to gain our 501c3 status as an educational nonprofit, largely due to a generous donation from a Silicon Valley legend named Joe Firmage. April 23rd in the year 2000 marked the date when the first How Weird Street Fair was born, making us just 1 year old in the year 00. At this time, I was living in the artist's warehouse on Howard Street with in-house DJs, sound equipment, artists, and the necessary infrastructure in order to facilitate our first year's event. It would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to produce the inaugural How Weird event without the assistance of my compadres in the Consortium of Collective Consciousness Warehouse and all the party-making resources at our disposal. Unfortunately, we had to move out of the CCC warehouse in 2001, just after producing the second annual event. It is still my policy all these years later to give a drink token to my old CCC roommates anytime I see one of them at the How Weird. It is my way of acknowledging to my former warehouse roommates the unintended consequences of making this event happen. When planning started for the first How Weird Street Fair, our primary goal was to create a fun and safe electronic music dance party for the few hundred people who had been coming to the CCC parties over the years. If it was possible to cover expenses and make the event sustainable, then we could do it again the following year. For the first 3 years, we had 2 stages with vendors in the middle on one block of Howard Street between 11th and 12th Streets. The joke in those early years was a line from the Blues Brothers film when Jake and Elwood Blues inquired into what kind of music was featured at Bob's Country Bunker. The play on words was similar to our given answer. Quote, "We have both kinds of music here, techno and trance." As the event grew in popularity each year, our 4th year expanded into the intersection of 12th Street and featured for the first time intersection artwork and real grass sod and urban park. With a larger footprint, our 4th year expanded to 4 stages, and at this point we began to outsource stages to other DJ collectives. In the following years, the attendance continued to grow by about 10% every year. All was going fine until our 8th year, when trouble threatened to end the How Weird. Resistance from the immediate neighbors who lived within the footprint forced officials from the city to cancel the event, stating it was too loud and now too big for a mostly residential area. For 2 weeks in 2007, the How Weird Street Fair was officially canceled. Only an intensive grassroots PR effort involving several hundred signatures and testimonials could save the event. But the stipulation from the city was that this had to be our last year in the old How Weird footprint. We were able to reverse the decision to produce our 8th annual event in the old location, but we were then ordered to relocate. Of course, there would be unintended and unforeseen consequences in our move. It turns out that getting evicted from the old location was a blessing in disguise. For our 9th annual event, the theme was Exodus, ostensibly because we had to move the festival 10 blocks downtown on Howard Street to our new location on 2nd Street, where one day a year we continue to reside on How Weird Street. Financially speaking, the first 3 years at the new location were just break-even years, but in our 4th year at the new downtown location, our 12th annual event, we finally pulled off a resounding financial success. Took us over a decade of dress rehearsals until everything fell into place for the event to work out favorably in every possible way. The biggest consequence of producing the How Weird is how it impacts everyone involved. The day of employment involves about 100 people beyond those who volunteer, and let alone the thousands of people who attend the event. When I started the How Weird in 2000, and all these years later, my motivation was always to deliver one memorable day of music, art, dancing, and putting a smile on the face of several thousand attendees. It's all about creating a quality experience. As for attaining these goals, my staff and I succeeded, hands down, every year. Beyond making below industry standard salaries, we were issued our first ever nominal bonus for the dozen inner circle directors and staffers in 2011. Everyone got the same bonus to promote fairness. Most years we just broke even, and some come in just above estimates. The profitable years have allowed the WPTTO to make donations to good causes in the neighborhood, including the ARC for disadvantaged and mentally handicapped people and the Soma Youth Group United Players. I still find it fascinating when people tell me they attended the Weird Street Faire and met their soulmate, got a job offer, hooked up with a beautiful partner, reunited with old friends, and even met their spouse and had a baby together. Talk about the unintended consequences. None of these factors were taken into account, but nevertheless happened in a positive way for other people. So you want to create a street fair. If you could do work that fostered world peace, and that was the directive according to a widely respected world religious leader, would you do it? What if it was really fun work? What if it was even more fun for 30,000 people? We'll get to the Dalai Lama's words about creating festivals for peace at the end of this chapter. But first, here is a snapshot of a pivotal year from a producer's perspective. Each year has its special memories, but the one that stands out in particular is the year when everything worked out just right. On the eve of the 12th annual Weird Street Faire in 2011, it was a beautiful, warm night in San Francisco. All four of the top directors and our paid management staff had a really good feeling we were going to be a big success. Sure enough, when we awoke, it was a perfect weather day, which for an outdoor event is usually the largest unforeseen factor deciding a make or break year. We'd had 11 dress rehearsals to finally get it right in every department on a large scale. This year we had a dozen stages, 4 donation gates, 4 in-house bars, over 60 paid vendors, half a dozen food vendors, 2 paid corporate sponsors, Dos Equis Beer and Zipcar, and most importantly, a gorgeous weather day. We reached near capacity in our 10-block footprint, which was a good sign of success considering our tiny marketing budget. In 2011, we hosted close to 14,000 people with attendance growth by 20% over the previous years, and all departments did well profitably, some better than others. It was our first year to generate over $100,000 in gross revenue. It remains the benchmark for us to try and emulate each year. It felt like arriving at a long-sought destination, but it took a 30-year party-making career to get here. There were many developments that had to occur along the way. The challenges surrounding Weird have been more intricate every year as the event has scaled up to its current proportions. The negotiations with the city of San Francisco and its officers continue fresh every year. As I was going over the final edit of this chapter, it occurred to me that I needed to do some follow-up on a business event for next year's fair. The expansion into a new intersection requested for our 15th annual event was originally denied, but I challenged that decision because it will be a public safety issue if we cannot expand. The outcome became a compromise, and half the requested area was allowed. Here's my official email. Hello, city official and Sergeant SF Permitting Officer. Would it be possible to meet this week or next regarding the mapping of the 2014 Weird footprint? Basically, the issue to resolve is the proposed expansion of the footprint by about 30% in size. into the intersection of First Street, which is surrounded by office buildings, so far less impact with residents is to be expected. The issue for us is the existing footprint is too small for the amount of people who come every year without us needing to do very much marketing. We would also like to ease the pedestrian burden at the Mission and Second Gate by moving it back to Minna Alley as a buffer. In order to make this sensible change and drop Minna Alley from the inside of the footprint, plus the fact that we are losing 2 large parking lots within our footprint due to development, we will be shrinking in size by 10% in 2014 while the event becomes even more popular. Without expansion approval, the festival population will become very dense, affecting our safety plans, and I'm sure increasing SFPD's concerns too. I look forward to meeting and discussing this more in person. Regards, Brad Olson, a Weird Producer. So you want to start an artist party space? My passion for throwing memorable parties began as a teenager alongside my older brother Chris, who had a lot of beer drinking and girl chasing friends a few years ahead of me in high school. Along with friends my own age, we started hosting gatherings even when our mom was upstairs asleep in bed. We grew up with our younger sister Marcy rather blissfully in a subdivision called Regent Park in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Our liberal mother allowed Chris and I to throw some great parties down in his basement bedroom, but the real legendary parties occurred when she was away on her painting trips to Wisconsin. The most memorable party we threw occurred on a hot summer evening when our mom was away on a trip, and a bunch of neighborhood friends plus a new girl named Lori all ended up getting rather drunk and playing strip poker. After getting liquored up, we went over to our neighborhood pool, climbing the fence, and all went skinny dipping. The party went on until dawn, with one guy being spotted by some shocked neighbors when walking Lori home in the nude. It's an event we still laugh about every time the old gang gets back together. Several of my Regent Park buddies went off to college with me at Illinois State University, located in the town called Normal. How ironic. Along with a couple of friends we met in our dormitory, myself and a few Regent Parkers started an off-campus party house called The Box. One high point was a party featuring a dozen kegs, hundreds of students inside and out, with a live band playing behind chicken wire, so no bottles thrown Bob's Country Bunker style could hit them while they were performing. I graduated from ISU after 5 years with a double major in business, marketing, and art. My thinking in college was a career in advertising, but that changed when I left Illinois to travel around the world. If I were ever to write an autobiography, it would be entitled From Normal to Weird. After college, I began to independently travel. First to Europe for several months in 1988, then around the world for 3 years, starting in 1991. My residence as an English teacher was a rustic party pad called Cherry House near the famous Nijo Castle in Kyoto, Japan. The Psycho Bash series of parties I held with fellow English teachers and some of our favorite students are still talked about among those of us who remain in touch. Traveling around the world after Japan exposed me to electronic music at the full moon parties on Koh Phangan, Thailand. As I continued to travel, I encountered DJ parties in Australia, and most importantly, the all-night trance parties in Goa, India, where I met 3 Americans who would team up with me a year later to start the CCC warehouse on Howard Street in San Francisco. I would live at the CCC from its inception in 1995 until we moved out in 2001. This location is also where I started my publishing business named CCC Publishing. The CCC warehouse was perfectly situated between large commercial buildings in a mixed-use neighborhood, so we could throw all-night DJ dance party events without really bothering anyone. We threw about one party a month in our space, plus several per year off-site at other indoor and outdoor locations. We threw well over 100 parties in our 6+ years of underground event production. All were successful, if considering that none got busted. There were no medical emergencies, we never lost money, and most importantly, amazing new friendships were to take hold. The only bad result of throwing CCC parties is that they became very popular, and in the final years, we had to turn away 3 people for every 4 trying to get in because of space restraints. Such experience at event production prepared us to roll out the speakers and take the underground scene of the CCC parties outside for the masses. Thus, the How Weird Street Fair was created to allow anyone, including families, to have a great time dancing outdoors to electronic music. 18 years running, and not one How Weird has lost money. No crime or serious medical emergencies have occurred. And finally, city officials now embrace the event as long as we continue our commitment to hosting a safe event. Our request for expanding into First Street continues to be denied. A very unique event. Stephen T. Jones was the city editor at the San Francisco Bay Guardian and is author of the CCC publishing book, The Tribes of Burning Man. He reported in the paper about a week after the 12th annual event, quote, "My publisher Brad Olson and his How Weird Street Fair crew staged one of the best outdoor dance parties in San Francisco ever. And I really don't think I'm exaggerating. Just killed it. And I suppose the weirdly warm San Francisco weather that peaked that day didn't hurt either. Yes, it's a life of abundance that we lead, party people. See you around," end quote. Despite being a marketing major in college, I have found that the best marketing for any business is the kind that comes for free or with very little expense. Indeed, the best business is one that does not require any marketing expense whatsoever. But how can that be achieved? For How Weird, it was simply by following our goal to create an exceptional event that people who attend will look forward to in the next year. They remember our funny name and they tell their friends. This is the basis of our viral marketing campaign on a shoestring. The event has now grown so big that we have to de-emphasize the marketing for fear it will grow too large and endanger the longevity of the festival. Everybody knows that even the best party sucks if it is massively overcrowded. Besides, this makes it seem more exclusive if it's kind of like a local secret. All of our sponsors have come to us. We did not seek them out, and we only align with sponsors who are compatible with our image. To further describe the How Weird, here is my email back to David Craver in 2010, the president of Open Mic US Network. Quote, "Thank you for sending your proposal. I understand your business plan to organize a talent contest to increase awareness of and increase attendance to How Weird Street Fair. I could see it working well for other events, but there are a few things you do not understand about the very unique event we call How Weird. 1, we outsource all of our alleged 11 stages to DJ collectives who program their own schedule of music. 2, the music the stages play is electronic music, not bands or singers. 3, people who come to How Weird get dressed up on their own. 4, we are already at near capacity for the footprint we use. 5, our event is so popular we do not need to advertise anymore except for the very basics: website, postcards, posters. 6, even if we did try it and even if there was no cost, the talent contest would still be competing for the attention of people at our other 10 other stages where the music is playing and people are dancing. Thus, it's not a good fit for our event. Regards, Brad. An unintended consequence of naming the event How Weird, which is a play on words from Howard Street, is the origin of the word weird itself and how it fits so perfectly in the vision of the event. I would learn many years after founding the event that the word weird comes from the Norse word wyrd, spelled W-Y-R-D, which became the blank and final runestone in their system of predicting the future. Wyrd means fate, or the act of becoming, so weird is ultimately our destiny. Being of Norwegian German ancestry, this little fact seemed very profound when it came to my attention long after the event was created. Seth Godin, author of We Are All Weird, wrote in his book, quote, "The weird set an example for the rest of us. They raise the bar. They show us through their actions that, in fact, we're wired to do the new." Our nonprofit organization has been approached on a few occasions by other producers inquiring about borrowing our name or the theme to create a How Weird event in other cities. Ironically, just about every city in America has a Howard Street, and some I have visited could even be suitable for a How Weird style event. I would love to see How Weird street, parade, beach, carnival, festivals pop up everywhere. More unintended consequences. Along with the people who have expressed their good times and connections as a result of How Weird, I have also gotten feedback from the readers of my books who said they were inspired by the information I provided. You guessed it, even more unintended consequences. Here is a typical letter from a reader of my first book. Quote, "Hey Brad, my best friend gave me your book, World Stompers, A Global Travel Manifesto, when I was 13 years old, 17-ish years ago. It worked. Travel first, grow up second. I'm one of the few people that I know who is doing something that I love now that I'm almost 30. Anyways, thanks for your book. It made my life." End quote. Well, it always gives me the warm fuzzies when I'm informed that my actions in the past continue to have positive repercussions in the present and presumably into the future. But unintended consequences can cut both ways. Unfriendly readers have tried to provoke me into verbal fights. I don't take the bait. As the saying goes, forget it enough to get over it, remember it enough so it doesn't happen again. How I deal with patronizing negativism or condescending comments is just stick to my guns, knowing that what I'm saying is true as best I know it. I follow logic at all times and admit my mistakes when I come to know I am wrong. My grandfather always admonished that one should never lose your cool. If I do not acknowledge an insult from somebody else, then that insult still belongs to that person. For me, overtly negative comments roll like water over a duck. They simply don't stick. I understand that not everyone is going to appreciate the How Weird or my editorial content, but I will not let angry people get me down. Instead, I look to turn a negative into a positive. I try to take criticism constructively. Sometimes when something or someone really bugs me, I look at this as a life lesson I can turn around into a positive. Irritating people are really a reflection of what we do not like to see in ourselves. in service to others. A great life lesson came in 1992 when I had the opportunity to live in Kyoto, Japan. I was truly amazed at the intense respect that the Japanese people reserve for teachers of any kind. I was pretty much a kid just out of college, and I stepped into a position of deep reverence, equal in the eyes of the Japanese to doctors or pilots. It was not because I was really tall or the way I looked, but because I got a job as an English teacher. And being in the teaching profession is considered good karma work because it serves others by imparting knowledge. To the people of the Far East, being a teacher is a great honor, but it is also a large responsibility, hence the deference and respect. Another lesson from traveling that sticks with me was attained when I visited the Osho International Meditation Resort in Pune, India. I kept encountering a very simple message, seemingly everywhere I looked, that while I understand much more fully today, I did not quite understand at the time. The message was, lose the ego, as proposed by Osho, a spiritual teacher from India who had already passed away when I arrived at his ashram. At the time, this made no sense, but I kept seeing it everywhere until I finally paid attention to this meaningful coincidence. The concept of losing the ego not only suggests a service to others, but also puts ourselves in a position of empathy and compassion, which is the posture of love and positivity. In the spirit of losing the ego, the personality of a person becomes less important and is supplanted with an urgency to look beyond one's own selfish desires. Hence, my difficulty in writing this chapter about myself. The opposite of service to others is placing one's own wants, needs, and personal satisfaction first, before concern for anyone else. Extreme service to self can devolve to the state of criminal psychopathic behavior. It begs the question whether allowing one's ego to dominate is nature or nurture. Regardless of what shapes us, we are not victims. Our free will allows us to make the choices in life that define the people we become. What could possibly be more important in terms of karma and a person's impact than a life well lived and including devotion to the assistance of others? It may seem completely counterproductive to think in terms of serving others before yourself, but I have found this to be true route to happiness in life. In the second book of the series, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, several chapters examine exopolitics, meaning who are the various ETs visiting our planet and what exactly are their intentions regarding the people of Earth. A distinction is made between those ETs whose focus is service to self and those who are devoted to service to others. It should not come as a surprise that those who are in service to others are the ones we should align with, and those who are in service to self are they who are doing great harm to the human race. What would the Dalai Lama do? When I look back at all the possible routes my life could have taken when compared to those I chose to take, I am routinely amazed. A different choice at any one juncture in my life would have irrevocably changed my current path. One decision in my early 20s could have kept me in Chicago all my life on a different career path, and one that could have made me a family man with the statistical 2.5 kids and living somewhere else. Instead, I'm in a committed relationship, living 20 blocks from the Pacific Ocean in San Francisco, throwing an annual street festival for 30,000 people, and operating a personally gratifying work-from-home publishing business. Had you told me while in college that this is how my middle age would be, I would not likely have believed you. Once again, unintended consequences led me down a very unique life path. So here I am, unapologetically feeling good with my choices and enjoying life's circumstances as they have come my way. I try to remember and give thanks every day and remind myself that each new day being alive is a true gift. A few years ago, I was watching a PBS special about the Dalai Lama from Tibet. He now lives a life of exile in Dharamsala, India. The narrator asked His Holiness what the average person could do to help create world peace. The Dalai Lama replied, quote, "They can make festivals, bring people together," end quote. My jaw dropped because it is what I already do. But I had not heard this sagely advice when I set about creating the Weird Street Faire for a nonprofit organization devoted to world peace. I had to laugh when the narrator continued by saying, "But the Dalai Lama does not like to personally attend festivals." The Dalai Lama is one of the most respected religious leaders in the world. His values align closely with my own, especially when he says, quote, "I believe all religions pursue the same goals, that of cultivating human goodness and bringing happiness to all human beings. Though the means may appear different, the ends are the same," end quote. In this regard, each of us has the capacity for extreme goodness if we so choose. Our actions have a ripple effect extending to other people in unimaginable ways. When we become comfortable with no beliefs, limits, or attachments, we will each experience our own version of freedom. Life may not be the party we hoped for, but while we're here, we should all dance. There is hope for the world if we can decide to make it so. The Dalai Lama noted, quote, "The problems we face today, violent conflicts, destruction of nature, poverty, hunger, and so on, are human-created problems which can be resolved through human effort, understanding, and a development of a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. We need to cultivate a universal responsibility for one another and the planet we share," end quote. The Dalai Lama proposes a utopian world if we all decide to make it so. I am certainly on board. Are you? In the final chapter in the Thrive section, we will examine the life of one person whose life of wisdom inspired billions of human beings over the course of the last few thousand years, and similar to the teachings of Jesus Christ. I look to his life lessons and timeless examples for my own personal inspiration. So does the Dalai Lama.